What's up, everybody? Thegoal60 here, and today we're going to talk about the Big Ten, and in particular the Big Ten East. Now, if you haven't already watched the 4 videos that came before this, which are both divisions in the SEC and both divisions in the Pac-12, I invite you to do so. But either way, we're going to talk about the Big Ten East right now and kind of go over how I got to this point and how I feel like this division is going to shape up. Now, before we get into all these teams in the Big Ten East, I just want to say real quick that before I start this is before any decision has been made on Urban Meyer or DJ Durkin at Maryland. This video, I'm filming it on the weekend, on Saturday to be exact, and it's going to be a few days before I post it. I just want to, let everybody know that way, and because some things could obviously change once those decisions have been made. But right now, these projections are off of talent, turnovers, things like that. They're not taking into consideration the, what's going to happen with these coaches and the effects that may come from those. Now, with all that said, let's jump right in. And the team that I have winning the Big Ten East may shock you, but I think this is the year they finally break through and they get above, being overrated for the past 3 seasons and everybody being disappointed at the end of the year. I think this is going to be the year for them, and that's Michigan. I think that with 8 returning starters on offense, including the quarterback that finished the year last season, even though Shea Patterson is coming in and he's probably going to be the starter, really they have 2 good choices with their top 2 quarterbacks. 9 starters on defense coming back for a very good defense, one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. This should be the year that Michigan gets it done. They have the same core of coaches. I think they lost their offensive line coach who was actually calling the plays for the run game last year, but they replaced him. They still have their pass game coordinator. They have their defensive coordinator, their head coach. Everything's the same. Now, last year they were -6 in turnovers. That is where they're going to make the biggest improvement, in my opinion. They're going to get a lot better at that. I'm sure that has been a focus, as you've seen from the other videos I put out. That is a big deal to me, especially like this, looking at the total season. I think that's something they work on in the offseason and will get better. Now, big games, they're at Notre Dame week 1. They're at Northwestern week 5. They have Wisconsin week 7, Penn State week 10, and Ohio State week 13. That is a tough schedule, but I think they can overcome it. I have them rushing for 195 yards, passing for 185, giving up 120 on the ground and 130 through the air. To me, that's good enough to go through this season undefeated. I have Michigan having their best year by far under Jim Harbaugh at 12-0 and 9-0 in the conference. Now, this next team is one that we're all familiar with, and right now they're going through some turmoil, and that is Ohio State. We'll see what happens this week. I'm expecting it to come out early in the week, probably right before this video is posted on either Monday or Tuesday, and have a decision about his future and what they're going to do there. As far as returning starters, they have 7 on offense, 5 on defense. They've got a lot to improve there. They have the same core group of players, or as coaches, I mean. So we'll see what happens with these coaches, if anything's going to go down with that. They were +5 last year in turnovers. As far as projected stats, I have them at 250 on the ground, 230 in the air. I think this quarterback that's coming in is really going to come in and really not miss a beat. I think he's very good. I have them giving up 95 yards on the ground, 185 yards through the air. As far as big games, they're going to TCU week 3. They're at Penn State week 5, and they have Michigan the last week of the season in the game. So with that said, I have Ohio State going 11-1, 8-1 in the conference. Their over-under is 10.5, so I don't think that's a large enough gap for them to be a play. Now, the team I have in 3rd place in the Big Ten East is Penn State. Now, I know they lost the player of the century, according to a lot of people, supposedly the best NFL player to ever step foot on the field, who hasn't touched the field yet, in Saquon Barkley. But we'll see how that turns out. I have them overcoming those losses and having a pretty good year. Now, their defense is where things are going to get a little iffy. The offense returns 7 starters, including their quarterback. The defense only returns 3 starters, so they have a lot to fill there. But I don't have any doubt. Pennsylvania traditionally is a good state for recruiting. They have a lot of good high school football players, and they're big, they're fast. They should be able to replenish pretty easy. As far as coaching staff, they did lose their offensive coordinator to Mississippi State, Joe Moorhead, who becomes the head coach there. In his place steps in the quarterback's coach from last year, Ricky Rain. They were +7 in turnovers. Look for that to come down a little bit towards the regression to the mean, since they are replacing so many on defense. As far as big games, they're at Pitt week 2. They have Ohio State week 5. They're at Michigan week 10. And they have Wisconsin week 11. As far as stats, I have them at 135 yards on the ground, 220 through the air, 140 given up on the ground, and 225 through the air given up. That to me is good enough for a 9-3, 6-3 season, and their over/under is 9.5, so it's not a large enough gap for them to be in play. But I have Penn State finishing 3rd at 9-3. All right, in 4th place in the Big Ten East, I have Michigan State. Now, this team returns 10 offensive starters, including their quarterback, 9 defensive starters, so they could easily pass Penn State for that 3rd spot, in my opinion. They have the same core coaches. They're +6 in turnovers. I don't see them falling off that much in turnover margin. Their stats, I have them projected at 155 rushing, 215 yards passing, 110 yards given up, and 185 yards given up through the air. As far as big games, they have Northwestern in week 6. They're at Penn State week 7. Week 8, they have Michigan, and week 11, they have Ohio State. That means that the second half of their season is a lot tougher than the first half. I look for them to be very good the first half of the season, maybe even 6-0 or something like that heading into all those games, or at least 5-0 before playing Northwestern. I have them right now at 9-3, 6-3, same as Penn State. That was a very close game when I projected it, so that could go either way. And their total is 9, so nothing there too far off to make that prediction. Next up, I have in the 5th spot is Indiana. Now, this year I do have Indiana making a little bit of a gain. They didn't make it to a bowl game last year. I do have them making it this year. They returned 7 on offense, 3 on defense, so a lot of players to fill the gaps. They keep their same core. They were -3 in turnovers. I look for them to get a little bit better with that, just trying to really focus on that this year probably. And I have them projected at 130 yards on the ground, 240 yards in the air, giving up 170 on the ground, and giving up 185 through the air. I have them going 7-5, 4-5 in the conference. The posted totals at 5.5. It's still only a game and a half, so therefore I wouldn't lean towards either side. But I do have them doing a little bit better and making it to a bowl game. A 6-6 season would not shock me. An 8-4 season would shock me here quite a bit. So I would say the top end of theirs is 7-5. So next in the Big Ten East, we have the bottom 2 teams, and these teams could go either way. I have Maryland at number 6. Now that, like I said the first video, I don't know what's going to happen with DJ Durkin. It does not sound good, and don't know all the details of that, but anytime you lose a player to a heat stroke and ultimately death, that's a terrible thing. And like I said, I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just saying it don't look good as far as him coming back as the coach at this moment. Now, if that were not the case, I had them with 8 returning starters on offense, with the quarterback coming back, 5 defensive players coming back. They do have new offensive coordinators, 2 of them to be exact, Chris Beatty and also Matt Canada. Now, Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator at LSU last year, so when he comes in, he's a little bit of a veteran. I don't know a lot about Chris Beatty, but I do know Matt Canada was at Pitt and then LSU, and now he's at Maryland. I look for him to be solid. He seemed to have done better at Pitt and where he came from before that up in the Northeast. Before, in this area of the country, for whatever reason, he likes that and that style of ball. As far as defense, they keep their defense coordinator. Turnovers last year, they were -2. Projected stats, I have 155 and 160 on offense, giving up 175 and 220. I have them at 6-6, more like 5-7 in my opinion. 6-6 projected. It wouldn't shock me if they went 5-7, and their over/under is 5, so nothing there to lean. That leaves us with the last team in the Big Ten East, and that is Rutgers. Now, Rutgers does have a lot of returning starters, including their quarterback coming back with 7 total starters on offense and 8 on defense. But that just, their talent level just isn't there. Their depth definitely isn't there. So they're going to have a tough year, just like they have had the last few years. Now, Rutgers is one of those teams. It was obviously one of the original football teams. They participated in the very first game ever played. They have a large tradition. They are in a pretty good spot as far as recruiting. So they do have upside for the future, but I just don't see it this year. New offensive coordinator coming in. They were -7 in turnovers last year, so I look for that to get a little bit better, maybe a couple more, simply because, like I've talked about before, of just working on those things during the offseason, during spring ball, during fall camp, that kind of stuff. Projected stats, I have 135 and 115, and then on defense, 180 and 210. So obviously you can see the production from the offense to the defense. There is quite a gap there, and therefore I have them going 2-10, 0-9, having a very bad year. Their over/under is 3.5. It's a game and a half above what I have, but I just really, that's not near enough gap for me to make a lean here. And I just wouldn't touch anything. So the only one I would touch is Michigan. I talked about the first video. Theirs is 9. I have them going undefeated at 12. That's 3 games. Therefore, I'm taking the over in Michigan's total. And once again, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, do all those good things. Comment with whatever you think I had wrong, if I had right, what you think your team's going to do, if you think I'm crazy, whatever. Just comment. Let's have a good discussion on what the football season is going to be. I know we're all excited about it, and let's move forward with it.
60% of the time, it works every time.